Why a Montessori home? Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. The truth is that the job of the infant is being, right? And then the job of the toddler is to do, and then the job of the preschooler is to think, right? And then beyond that, they're learning how to be in the world, right? And it continues to grow. But what happens is children from the age of 0 to 3 have what's called an unconscious absorbent mind. And it's this vehicle that allows them to absorb their mother tongue, they learn how to move, right? They roll, they crawl, they cruise, they walk, they communicate through different kinds of crying and babbling. They're receptively understanding before they can express themselves through words. And in this state, everything in the environment is being uploaded into their brains without them even knowing it. It's amazing, right? They're not consciously thinking, I'm going to learn how to speak. They're just absorbing the environment, and they absorb everything, right? They absorb how we talk to each other. They absorb how the kitchen's set up. They absorb everything in their environment. And Dr. Montessori knew that the young child was going to develop through this period, no matter whether the environment was prepared for them or not, right? And then at age 3, they start to have a conscious absorbent mind. And from 3 to 6, they have the brain is consciously absorbent. And then once they hit the age of 6, they do not have the absorbent mind anymore. They shift into what we call the second plane of development. I'm not going to get into all that Montessori talk, but it is important for you all to know that they actually become aware that they're learning, but they still have that sponge-like ability. And the conscious absorbent mind gets to think. It consciously thinks. It can be conscious of what they're processing, and children start to really recognize they have choices, and they have choosing, and that they want things explained to them. They want to use their ability to explain. They really, it's really kind of this magical time where there's a big explosion in the brain. The whole period 0 to 6 is a big explosion. And then after that, they move into having a conscious learning, right? But that they've stepped out of that 6-year period. So why have a Montessori home? Well, we're going to get into more of this in our presentation in 2 weeks on the Montessori child, but the piece that I want to really presence for you is that children build their self-esteem through worthy challenges. And if they're in an environment that is not set up for their independence, if a parent is coming in and consistently doing things for them that they can do for themselves, or the environment is not prepared for them to be independent, it actually erodes their self-esteem and their sense of who they are and what they can do in the world, right? So there actually is quite a bit of need for them to be able to participate as far as their own growth. We say that we want to begin with the end in mind, and our ultimate commitment is to raising conscious, engaged, competent citizens. And really, when the environment is prepared for them, that is what falls out the bottom, right? When they start to see that they have a need to be a contribution in their household. You know, in one of the things that I find is that it's really easy for parents to do all of the pieces, and the children are just kind of an accessory, and that does not serve them. The environment needs to be prepared so that they can be meaningful contributors to the home. So, and what Dr. Montessori tells us, she said it's the teachers, right? But really, when you look at the home, the the parent's first duty is to watch over the environment, and this takes precedent over all the rest. Its influence is indirect, but unless it is well done, there's no effective and permanent results of any kind, physical, intellectual, or spiritual. What Dr. Montessori told us is the environment the child is in is one of the teachers of the child. Like, that is the guide, the way the home is set up. So one of the things I would ask you to consider, and just take a moment right now to think about the different rooms in your house. And I'm going to have you all go into a quick breakout room, probably just a few minutes here, but an opportunity for you to think about, what are the rooms that are really well designed already for your children, and where are the rooms that your child doesn't really have access? Like, if you think about going through the rooms on your knees, and your child does not need to have access to every room in the house. Okay, that is, if there is a room that they're not going in, if you have a den or an office or a space that they're not spending time in, they don't need. But if it's a space that they're using, like an entryway, a bathroom, a kitchen, their space, the living room, those common areas, they also need to be prepared for the child, so the child has independence and access in that. So consider how are the spaces in your home prepared for your child's independence right now. And for those of you at home, this is a great opportunity for you all to self-reflect and think about what it is that you're in your environments. And if you want to have this conversation with someone else, that's great too. I'm going to go over, we just have some basic principles and guidelines for an environment. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these because we're going to go through every room in the house, but a thoughtful space for the child in every room of the house, right? That they use. A place for everything, and everything in its place. That is one of the challenges we have in our house to this date. They can, just because I decide something goes in a specific place doesn't mean that everybody agrees to that. So we have that a little bit going on, especially when my husband empties the dishwasher. It's like a scavenger hunt. And then we have aesthetically pleasing. And one of the things that to really think about is, what would you want up on your walls? What would you want to look at? Would you want to look at a poster of Barney or Winnie the Pooh? Does that bring out a sense of beauty for you? Because really, we're building their sense of what beauty is. And there's no reason that they can't have a Monet or something that really inspires them in their spaces as well. So thinking about that, thinking about the materials they're using, the shelving, those kind of things. Developmentally appropriate. What are the things that, when you're looking at what's out for them, we want it to always be right on that cusp of challenge. Now, some things they're going to learn how to do, like empty the dishwasher, and they're just going to do that forever, right? But then are there challenges built into the home that are challenging them to go to the next level of their own development? One of the things I like to think about is our job is to have them ready when they're 18 to go out into the world, right? So if you start at 18 and you go backwards and think about the skills that they need to have to be really, because technically they can go on their own, they can join the military, they can die for our country. At that point, I think that that's a pretty big milestone. They're going to be driving by then. They're going to be off. Many will go to college and will make choices that will impact the rest of their lives. And so what is the preparation? And what I find oftentimes happens is we wait to give them responsibilities and skills and support them in their independence. And then all of a sudden it's this huge jump, rather than looking at where we want them to be at 18 and then looking back from there, like what needs to happen at each time in their life for them to be ready to really be 18 and on their own, which means, can they navigate being stranded if they're driving? Can they change a tire? Can they call for triple A, you know, all of those pieces, right? Like it's when you think about it, it's a lot of skills, right? And we're not a generation who's just throwing our children into it. Like I drove cross country by myself when I was 18 years old. I drove from Colorado to Maryland, right? That was that. I cannot now. I'm like, that is not something we're doing. We're not throwing our children in like that. But how then do they build these skills? So, natural sensorially rich materials. So things in the home that are nice for them to touch and for them to feel. That's a principle that we use in Montessori all the time. Everything designed for independent success. So as much as possible, having things for them that they can use and they can reach, and then inspiring purposeful work. So we want environments that really inspire them to be deeply connected to what they're doing. Okay. So I'm going to go through any questions or comments about any of those before I go into these other areas. So I'm going to go through the house now. Okay. So the kitchen, we're going to start here. So 4 children in the kitchen, and Dina, I'm sorry, a lot of these are geared towards the younger ones, but we will talk about, because I have a child in your same age range, right? So we'll talk about those pieces too. But when they're young, you want to really give them access. And there's a couple different, I like the picture on the left. It was not my house, but it's a nice way of thinking about how do they have access to being able to give themselves a good snack. I'm not talking about chips or even goldfish. I'm talking about nutritionally healthy snacks that they can feed themselves when they're hungry. Do they have access to water? Can they get themselves a glass of water, or do they need to ask for that? Are they able to access let's say they're preparing strawberries? Even 2-year-olds can prepare strawberries. Okay, is there a cutting board, or do you have to run around and get them everything set out for them in order for them to be able to do the activity? Do they have napkins? Can they access the things to set the table? You know, what Dr. Montessori says, as soon as they are old enough to walk, they're old enough to work, right? And so we want to make sure that they have access to the things to set the table early on. Also, if like the stool in the center was a stool I loved, and if we were talking about infants, just those of you who have infants at home, I really recommend a weaning table. And I will put it on my list to add one to the PowerPoint for next time. But it really gives them access in the kitchen to being able to, and actually I have one on the next slide. I'll show it to you here. On the left here it's a weaning table, and so when they're very young, it's very stable. It's not going to flip over on them. They can put all their weight on it, and it allows them. We always had snack there. Anytime the family wasn't eating together, but it was just me and my daughter, one of my daughters, or my husband and one of my daughters, we would eat at the weaning table, and we'd sit on a cushion so they can get in and out. There's a chair that fits there, right? So that they really have access in that way. And in the center, you can see that's a high chair that she can get up on herself. She needed a stool to climb, and it was a challenge. But one of the things we find with children is they're in high chairs really a long time, longer than they need to be, because the parent is keeping them put, but then they're not building the skill of staying at the table, right? And they don't know how to stay at the table because they're not developing that skill. And then over on the right is what, is a stool. I like these stools. This one's smaller than the ones I had, but we called it the learning tower. It gets them up to the counter. They're able to help wash dishes, able to chop, those kind of things. And we find, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong slide for you guys here, that this is the learning tower, and in the center is the high chair is talking about. and that that they can get in and out of themselves. And you can see everything there is about independence, right? And really having a sense of order within the framework of the space for them. Okay. We also want to set them up so they can be heavily involved. There's no reason to wait for your child to be able to cook. When Georgie's here, you can see she's making the oatmeal when she's 3 years old at the stove in her learning tower. That's the center picture. Over on the right, that's one of our students, Aubrey, I think she's kindergarten there. She's, cracking the eggs on a griddle, and she's able to, now this is at school, but she can do this at home too, right? Able to use hot things. People get a little concerned around the stove. I will tell you that of course, each of my girls burned themselves one time, and that was it. It's part of understanding that you have to be careful in life. We also want to set them up so they can clean up after themselves in the environment. And that's the picture on the left. She's learning already how to wipe up after herself in there. She's probably about 18 months there, and you can see that there. So the other thing to think about in the kitchen is your equipment and having it set up so they have, and I'm going to give you a link at the end for, it's called Montessori Services. Also now you have Amazon, but back when I was raising my girls, there was no Amazon, right? So we were trying to find small things that they could use that were small enough. I will say for you, Dina, I think when the girls get to, or the children get to that age of being in the upper L, there's no reason they can't be making dinner that has multiple courses, like not just a soup, or that's one of the pieces we're working on with Georgie right now, is really having everything be ready at once, right? And what does that mean, and all of that navigation. And of course, sometimes the broccoli is really overcooked, which is like one of my least favorite kind of foods, but it does build that skill for them. And what I would say for when they're by upper L, there's everything we have in the house, they have access to. They're using the knives, they're using the blenders, they're using the gardening tool, the gardening shears. We don't have a chainsaw, but anything that we're able to use, we're able to teach it. Georgie mows the lawn. Any of those skills are a part of what we're asking, because like I said, we're playing for 18, and you and I we have 7 years left, and it's a blink, right? So something to think about. When you're in the kitchen, you want to think about the other thing you can think about is beyond the mop and a bucket, and I'm adding those. I'd like to get a picture of a mop and a bucket and a broom and knives and cutting boards. And also, some people put a drawer in the refrigerator for snacks that they can take out. Cleaning supplies, I like to have, they need to know where the cleaning supplies are. I went to Walmart and I bought a thing of 52 rags, because I was hearing, well, we're out of rags. What, I couldn't clean it up because we're out of rags. So now we have 52 rags. We are never out of rags. And we have a bucket in the kitchen that those rags go into once they're really, they're dirty. And that is also a cycle. And then that's a responsibility to take the bucket down and do the laundry as well. So that's a part of their responsibilities. And that's a part of being prepared, is also having that a way for them to access cleaning up on their own. I recommend for little ones, because you're not going to be using bleach or whatever, but you can use white vinegar and mix it in with you get a big thing of white vinegar for a couple dollars, and you mix it in with half vinegar and half water, and that's a really good, it's actually does disinfect, and it's a good cleaning solution for them to use, and that allows them to really have full access, and you're not worried about them, getting it in their mouth or whatever. And we want to, this is another example. I love this environment. Oh, this is the weaning table I was talking about. So she's got a weaning table here. You can see that the little chair that also really fits there for their little bodies, and they can get in and out by themselves, which is building that independence, and also that self-discipline and self-control. And then on the right, the image on the right, you can see that there's water, access to bowls, access to plates, silverware, all of that. One of the things that I think is really important, I'm going to underscore this. I had siblings too. I know some of you were talking about siblings at different levels. I always had Georgie, when my youngest is Georgie, she had access always to, we always kept our plates and bowls in a low drawer so that they could be accessed. And I just always have gone to Marshall's and gotten white plates and white bowls, and they don't always match perfectly, but that way if they break, it's not a big deal, and it allows and really taught them as soon as they could walk, how to carry it carefully. One of the rules in Montessori is you only carry one thing at a time. So you literally, you teach them to carry one plate at a time, one glass at a time, one, whatever it is at a time. So they're bringing that over carefully to the table. And we probably, had a couple things break, but it was not very common because they also understand how it's a responsibility, right? And it's teaching them that responsibility and that independence very early. Any questions on the kitchen before we keep moving? Yeah, Ashley?
Hi. So everything that you stated, I pretty much have, except for the weeding table. I have questions about that because I didn't start my daughter with Montessori until she was about 2 years old.
Yep.
So she had the learning tower, but I didn't do the weeding table just because I think pretty much all of the grandparents were like, why would you do that? Like, get the high chair. They need to sit down, so on
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah.
So when is the best time? Because I have a 1-year-old, a 12-month-old, who I want to start doing that with, but I don't know if he's, mentally there.
He's 100% mentally there. And what's
Okay.
really great about the weaning table is he'll be able to pull himself up on it too. It's actually a nice thing that they can pull themselves up. They can really manage it, and they could actually crawl over to the weaning table and get into the chair by themselves at that age without, like, I'd say, hey, are you hungry? You want to have some snack? And just head over there, right? And as far as grandparents go, I totally get it. I have to say my in-laws they're from Greece originally, and they were like, first of all, I cannot believe you're sending our grandchildren to school at 18 months. Why are they doing that? I'm here. I just want to take care of them. But I really, talked a lot about independence, and we do have a grandparents' day, which we, if they can come to that will help, because we talk about these principles and and then as soon as they saw how my girls turned out, they're now paying for my niece to go to Montessori school, because you see the difference of their capability and how they show up, and they've stopped pushing. It does happen. They stop pushing when people are like, wow, they're so respectful, they're so competent, and it really comes out of you have to meet them where they are. So yeah, I highly recommend the weaning table for sure.
And then one other question I did have is, now just flew out of my mind. My daughter, like I said, I have everything, such as the brooms. I even have a little functional kitchen just for my son, and as well as a learning tower. and the cutting boards, but my daughter doesn't have, and I don't know if it's because I started her at 2, but she doesn't have like that willingness and wanting to like, she's always like, Mommy, you can do it. Like, you know how to cut it off. So
Yeah.
I'd say like, why don't you try first or something like that? But is there like, am I pushing too hard, or is it just like they will want to and will do it when they want to?
What a great question, Ashley. Great question. I find that when they're not, first of all, is she wanting to do something else when you're cutting? Is there something else she would prefer to be doing?
Like, for instance, if there's yogurt or something like that, she knows where the yogurt is, can grab it herself, and she will grab it herself. And she'll ask me to open it, which obviously that might be a little hard for her to do.
Yeah.
But then she'll be like, okay, well now pour it in and mix it. It's like, those are things that you can do and you're willing and wanting to do, but you'd rather want me to do it. And it's almost like a power.
Yeah.
Like a power.
Well, it's also, it's connection,
right?
right?
Okay.
Like she's seeking connection with you, right?
Mhm.
And so that, you know, a lot of times we'll say, the guides are really brilliant at this. They'll say, well, let's do it together, right?
Mhm.
I'll have a spoon and you have a spoon and let's do it together. And then, look, you did 3 spoonfuls without, I noticed you didn't, there's not a drop of yogurt on the counter from, how do you feel about that? And you just kind of you're going to keep supporting her in taking it on as, and she may want you to just stand there and be with her, because that generally what we find is it's not necessarily that they don't want to do the activity unless they're feeling like they're going to mess up, but a lot of times it's that they want to spend time with you, and it's a way for you to be right there rather than, you know, helping her brother or whatever it is.
Right.
So,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Thank you.
Great question. All right.
I would also just say
Yeah.
Something that I've heard in these talks that helped me as a parent is that bit about scaffolding, which is when you scaffold, you do as little as possible for the child. So if they say, can you help me with my zipper or something, to maybe get that very bottom piece and then have them do the rest. So you do as little as possible, because you do want to, as you say, you do want to help them. They've asked for your help, but at the same time, you don't want to do a lot. You want them to do as much as possible. So I always appreciated hearing that reminder.
I love that, Meredith. Thank you for bringing that up. And the other piece, just to add on to what Meredith just said, that is really helpful, is you can ask them, if it's not about the connection and they're worried about their ability to do it, right, which is where Meredith is you're scaffolding, you're doing just a little bit, like with the yogurt top, you can pull it just enough and then she can do it the rest of the way, right?
Yeah.
There's also saying, tell me what part is hard, because a lot of times it's not the whole thing that's hard, right? And they'll get stopped by one little piece of it. So tell me what part is hard.
Okay.
And then you can, and then you're supporting them in building that specific skill.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Meredith. That was so important. Let's see. I'm gonna share my screen again here. All right. So then we go into the bedroom of the house, and the bedroom, those of you with young ones, we do a floor bed in Montessori, again, for the same reasons that we don't put them in a high chair, because a high chair, you're really kind of trapped, you know, a high chair that they can't access. That is not, I will share with you that I had one of those that attached onto the table, and when we had family meals, I put my daughter up and put them in it. Okay, so I just want you to know that. But as much as possible, we also use the weaning table. And in the bedroom, we had a floor bed. Also, you notice in this bedroom, there's lots for the child to access. That way, when the child wakes up in the morning, they're not dependent on you to come get them. They are able to go and select something. And this is a big piece. Okay, this is true for children all the way through all the different ages. It is so important that they learn to have time by themselves. Okay, I'm going to say that in each one of my sessions. They need to be able to spend time by themselves and feel comfortable in their own skin and be able to entertain themselves without electronics. Okay, that's not going off with an iPad. It's spending time reading a book or working on a puzzle or drawing or whatever it is. But I think one of the mistakes that I see us make as parents is try to entertain them or try to always have it something going for them. And I think that is a mistake. First of all, the brain research shows that they need that downtime to be able to access the creative part of their brain. And one of the tips I will share with you that, Dina, you may be one of the ones running into this, but the I'm bored conversation, that never comes up in my house because I learned from my mother, who, when I said I was bored, she would say, oh, that's such good news because I have a bathroom that needs cleaned. And so it was never, oh, you're bored, let me give you this list of solutions for that. It was always, oh, good, because if you're bored, I have something for you to do. And I think that's just really helpful for our children to not expect us to think for them. And I won't get all the way deep into that today, but it is not our responsibility to entertain them. It's not our responsibility for them. We are responsible for being kind and compassionate and connection before correction and all of those pieces, but we are not responsible for them being happy all the time. That is their responsibility, and they have to know that's their responsibility and hold that and step into that. So anyway, and you see in the bedroom, there's also toys or books and really an area to sit down that they can access themselves. Also in the bedroom, the independence for clothing, right? And I love these two examples. Now, the one on the left is a family who they really cared what their children showed up to school in. Those of you who have met my children know that I gave them pretty much complete freedom, although now my youngest would like to be in midriffs and we're not doing that. So it's not that kind of freedom, but the freedom of like stripes and things that didn't go together and their own self, because that's a part of their self-expression. The family on the left, she was a fashion designer and did not feel comfortable with that. And so she gave two choices every day and would hang the choices up. And which is also, if that's your family value, I understand. I will share with you all that now I wish I'd been a little bit more particular because it's too late. They're like, no, it doesn't matter, Mom. I'm like, oh gosh. So, but with socks, can they access their own socks? Can they access their own underwear? Can they access all of their own things? And even with the hanging, things being hung and again, things being in order. Now, one of the things you'll see in both of these images for younger children, it's really helpful for them to be able to visually see their choices. You notice that they're not stuck in a drawer, right? They're out so that the child can see where they're not having to think, okay, the socks are in the top drawer. Now, as soon as they get to really 3 or 4, they're able to remember all of those pieces. But I will share with you that I find that drawers tend to be a place that they just stick everything then, and it doesn't help them develop a sense of order as much. So something to think about. Any comments, questions about the bedroom before we're going to move into the bathroom, PB?
At what age do you try to foster this independent play, and how do you do that?
With the young ones, you mean?
Yeah.
We started very young. We had a floor bed, so we would, when our daughters wouldn't go to sleep, we gave them time in their room where they would actually crawl over and play. And so they started very, very young, having time by themselves. If your child has not yet built that skill, I would start with small amounts of time and just build. And one of the things that you can do is, again, this would be scaffolding. So, if your child is at a point where they're not yet comfortable with you leaving the room, you could say, you read your book, I'll read my book, right? And you read next to each other, so they have that same experience. And then you might say, I've got to go, check on dinner. I'll be back in 5 minutes, and you start to build that way. So you can scaffold that as well. But I will say that I really want to underscore how important it is for them to build that skill. It will serve them well in their lifetime.
Question. So, as you know, my son is an engineer and a construction worker, and with everything in its place, and everything has its place and everything in its place and all that, the challenge we're having now, especially because he was home last year in the virtual learning space, the question is ongoing projects. So if there is a construction project that is going on, or a train setup that took a long time and he loves it and he doesn't want to take it down, it is not put away. How many days? We're fortunate enough to have a playroom as a playroom and not as a bedroom, so we can keep it theoretically indefinitely. But where's the appropriate boundary with, in general, of we've got to put stuff away? No, this has been out for too long. In the Montessori classroom, it is one project. They take it out, they clean it up, they put it back on the shelf. That's just not realistic. Sort of, where's the right boundary there?
I would say until when he's not working with it anymore.
Okay.
If he's still working with it every day, then I would leave it out for him. Just like, I have projects in my house. My daughter's at Carver, she has visual art. She leaves out her painting.
Yeah.
He's done with it, right? Now, he never feel like he's done, but if he's not working with it consistently, that would be my kind of boundary for it is, the dust starts settling on it. You gotta put it away. And that's true, actually, and we'll get into that in the play spaces. But to Ashley's question about how much is too much it's the same as the play spaces. My rule has always been, however old they are, you double that, and that's how many things you have out, right, at once. And it helps to, like, if they're 2, that you put out 4 things, and that's how many they can put back. Now, you may change out those things 6 times, every day you're putting out new things, but that's one of the things we recommend in Montessori is you have a storage space. And actually I'll come back, I'll talk about this when we get to the play area and we talk about toys and stuff. So let's talk about the bathroom here. Okay, so in the bathroom, you can see this is for a younger child, right? You want to give them access to the toilet by themselves. This was a stool that was a prototype, never got made again, but I love the stool. We still have it because they could climb up on it themselves. They have these, these are much more accessible now, right? Where they have handles and they can get up there. Now, a couple things about toilet seats. I know this is not the toilet learning session, but for those of you who are going to be in this age, I really recommend not having a toilet seat that has faces on it. I think that's weird, right? Why are we going to sit on this Explorer's face, right? And I also recommend having handles, something that they can hold on to, right? And that they can, and also please don't get anything that makes noise when they go to the bathroom, like, because it is anticlimactic when you learn that when you go to the bathroom, nobody's going, woo, 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 right? So we're not doing any of that stuff, right? The sink, an extender, most sinks the water doesn't come out far enough. You don't want to have to be lifting them up. Also with soap, I recommend doing half soap or even a third soap and the rest water so that they can do a couple squirts. And if you have a soap squirter, I would have a different looking one, but one in the bathtub as well if you have a young child, so that they can squirt as much as they want in the bathtub and have that experience without having to use all your hand soap, right? So notice that there's a towel here for the child to be able to access, and also a mirror so that they can see at their height, right? That makes a big difference, and everything is accessible to them. This is set up for toilet learning. You can see they've got their underwear and their, you know, toothbrush and everything. This is under somebody's sink. So that's one piece. The bathtub is another thing. Please, you know, we really encourage you to have a limited number of toys in the bathtub as well, and then have a basket or something that they go back into. I really like this. This is another a place that somebody had toothbrushing. I'd never seen this before. I found this image of this kind of setup that attaches to the bathtub, where you can actually put a toothbrush and a hairbrush and they can reach, which I think is super cool. And this is set up for toileting, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But so they have access to everything in here. If you cannot fit a stool in your bathroom, which I know some people have a small bathroom, you can set up a hand washing station anywhere, but you want to have them be able to get up to wash their hands by themselves. You want them to be able to access toothbrushing by themselves, brushing their hair by themselves. In the bathtub, one of the other things about the bathtub is that I would recommend having a little, like those travel bottles of shampoo, you know, you put in, and you put some in so they can serve their own, they can do their own shampoo. Maybe you have to help, but they can put that in their hand and they learn to start washing their hair. And all of those things can be done on their own. And oftentimes I find that parents keep doing those for their children because the parent really enjoys it, and it's not necessarily that the child needs it. And we have to remember that anything we're doing for the child that the child doesn't need us to do is actually interfering with their development, right? Like anytime we're standing in the way of their development. In November, we're going to have Danusha's going to do a toilet learning session, just so you know. And we also have at least two YouTube videos on toilet learning specifically, that both a couple hours long, because we can talk about toilet learning like all day, right? So the sensitive period for it is as young as 14 months it starts, and it goes till about 24 months. In many other cultures, they start younger than that. It is mostly in the United States that we wait so long. And as far as the wiping, I would recommend putting a mirror on your bathroom door and teaching her to bend over and check herself until she has the skill. And also there's a specific squat that you can do and 3 clean wipes, what we say. And we teach to wipe 3 times and wipe until you have 3 clean wipes. Squat so that your teeth are. So probably more than you wanted to know, but that's the level we get into here at Greenspring. We're talking about toilet learning. And there is a great session on that. So just, I'm going to recommend it. You're getting this. All right. The play area, again, some people have access to a playroom, others don't. Notice here, there's not that much out, and the books, even the books, this is an area that we've never done a good job, but limited books, limited choices, and everything is very beautiful, and everything is really designed to be calming and engaging. This is a playroom that a 3 or 4-year-old could put back together so easily. Think about that. Nothing in big bins, right? If you care about it, you have it set out on a nice tray, you're showing it off. You notice throughout the presentation, things are put in a way that they're aesthetically pleasing and they call to you. I noticed that here, all of this is wood. Every tray that she or he has out in this environment is wood. The only thing I don't love about this environment is that the images, which are very sweet, the lion and the hippo and all of that, they're very high. The child is not going to really be able, those are images up there that are really for the adults in the environment and not for the child. They're not at their height. But there's a chair that they can access, and really such a beautifully, thoughtfully designed space in here. We also want to think about a place to work, right? I want to talk to you a little bit about this, because this is an area I think most of us are not as well educated. We want the child to be able to really have a right angle with their knees and their feet being flat on the floor. And that's really important, because oftentimes you see children in something where their knees are pushed up or their feet are dangling. If a child's feet are dangling, he or she cannot feel grounded, and they can't actually hold that. That's part of what developing the pincer grip and building those skills, right? And so you want to think about them also having space underneath the knees, underneath the table and above the knees, and giving them a space where they can really work. That's true. You can do that with a weaning table when they're young, and so on and so forth. And of course, I like the tables where it can adjust, because they grow, right? And that's a lot of different tables if you're going to keep changing out the table. So it's something to think about. We had, so many IKEA tables, and we would just go get another table and we cut off the legs to where they needed to be, and because they were less expensive, and give those to Goodwill and then get the next set. So that's one way to do it. The entryway, when you're going through the entryway, you want to think about, where do their things go, right? Do they have a place for their mittens? Do they have a place for their boots? Can they access the hooks? Do they have a place to sit while they put on their shoes? Everything has a place, right? And where does it go? If you have a child who is throwing their bag on the ground because it doesn't have a place, that's an issue, right? Because there's not a system in place. If you have a child throwing their bag on the ground because they're not using the system, that's a whole nother conversation, which we well know, right? So any questions or thoughts about any of that before we go into we're going to go to the outdoors?
Just with the entryway, does it need to be like with the seating area? Like Vera didn't have that as an option, so she just kind of went to like on the floor and put on her shoes, and now we have a bench for her, but like doesn't work quite for my 1-year-old. Should I still incorporate a little chair for him?
I would. I mean, it's really, the way I think about it is, would I want to sit on the floor to put on my shoes? Right? Like that's just kind of where I go back to. And it could be a cushion, right? He could just sit on a cushion or something, it doesn't have to be, because it's not long. He's going to be big enough for the bench in a blink.
Yeah. But I got another little one coming.
Oh, you do? Congratulations.
Yeah. So I'm constantly thinking of this area too.
Keep your stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Okay, so the entryway, are you guys seeing my share right now still? Okay, great. All right. The outdoor engagement. So it's very important that the children stay engaged in the outdoor environment. And that they spend as much time outside as possible. It's healthier. It connects them to nature. They need to be stewards of our planet. I know you all know this, but I just am going to restate it. Even if they're reading a book, they can be outside. I like the outdoor environment to have a space to really be comfortable, to read, we have my favorite spot in our whole house is like, we have a little deck out the back and we have one of those 3-people swings with the cushions, and we sit out there and read. You can tell we read a lot in our family, but we will read, and having a safe place to do that, or a comfortable place to do that, really makes it more accessible. Excuse me. Also a place for them to work. If you all are gardeners or you're doing potting, do they have a broom they can use in the outside? Do they have a rake that's their size? Do they have access to a shovel? I just want everybody to solemnly promise that you or your significant other or grandpa or whoever is not going to be out shoveling the driveway while the children are in on the iPad ever. Like, we're solemnly promising, right, that we will always have the children be involved in supporting the home in those ways. So giving them access to the outdoors is really important as well. Any questions, comments about that? Okay, the prepared car environment. This is an area a lot of us spend a lot of time in cars nowadays, and it's easy for this to become a kind of a mess. I recommend having a garbage in there, and then a way for your children to organize whatever they're bringing in the car. I love this little setup here. We had one of those for a while. It did kind of lose its shape, but it allowed them to put their water bottles and have things to do as they're in the car, and really thinking about the car as much as a prepared environment as the rest of the house. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to do some self-reflection now. What are the changes you want to make in your own home environment to best support your child's growth and independence? And what impact do you think that this will have on your child? Really, what I'm asking is, what skills do you want them to build? What are the impact you're looking to generate? Children as contributing members of the home. We talk about this a lot in our other sessions, and what does that mean? But I do just want to really have you be thinking about the child as a contribution in your home, and what's their contribution. And in our house, a lot of times, rather than saying chores, we say contributions. Like, what contributions are you going to make today? Because everybody contributes. And one of the things I just have been noticing a pattern of people saying, I need you to help me do the dishes. And the truth is that the dishes are a job that everyone's responsibility in the house. It's not just the mom's job or the dad's job, or right. So I've been really trying to see my own language because I definitely have fallen into that trap myself, and really say the dishes need to be done, right? Which is different. It's not, I need you to help me, because then all of a sudden everything's my responsibility and you're helping me out, which is hogwash, right? Because the truth is the dishes need to be done. And, we need the support in taking care of that, or, like the dishes need to, I still can't do it, right? How do we even do that? So something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I noticed that it's even in our house with Georgie right now, we're still working on her transitioning to taking ownership. Sia owns responsibilities in the house, whereas Georgie still has to be reminded. So we're really trying to pay attention to our language and really see how we're reinforcing that it's not like somehow we've set it up, right? Like, let's be clear. Ultimately, we're accountable. We never blame the child. So if she's not taking responsibility, where could we approach it differently? And that's where we are right now with her. In her, like, she's happy to do it when we ask her. Like, she has jobs that she does every day, but like, she's not emptying the dishwasher just when it's clean. She waits until we say the dishwasher needs emptied. right? So then she jumps in, but it's not the same thing. I want her to be able to identify it, say, oh, wow, the dishwasher, I'm just going to take care of it. So that's what we're working on right now in some of our language around that. Just so you know, even if you're teaching parenting classes, you're still working on it all at home. There's no perfection ever. So care of other living things is a really nice piece to incorporate with the children in at home. And I am going to spend a little time going over, and some of you already have this from our other session, but I think it's worth revisiting just briefly, the chores. So for 2 to 3 year olds, dusting, setting tables, gathering up dirty clothes, putting clothes in the hamper, wiping down cabinets, small spills, washing windows, washing their tricycle, sweeping, mopping, plant care, picking up toys, helping to cook, feeding and watering the plants, or pets and plants, clearing the dishes. 4-year-olds can make their own bed, make their own snack, put their clothes away for laundry. They can load the laundry hamper themselves. They can vacuum rooms. They can assist with raking the yard. They can make simple meals. It's really nice when you get to eat something that they've made. They're so proud of that. And I would recommend that be regular and not an event, not just like every once in a while, but really like on Sunday, they are responsible for making whatever. That's kind of how we do it. Sweeping, emptying the waste baskets, folding laundry, setting and clearing the table, sewing, emptying the dishwasher, learning to use the stove. And I will share with you in our session about the child. I don't think I did this in the one on the parent, but we'll talk about how to give a lesson so that we, and that's for younger ones. Dina, at your point, you can throw it all at her and she can hold it. But with the younger ones, it has to be framed a little differently. Chores for 7 to 9-year-olds, cook complicated meals, multiple steps. You want them to, like, I know 9-year-olds who can absolutely do the whole dinner, roasted chicken and a side of asparagus and rice on the side, all of that. Pack their own lunches, clean their bedroom. Obviously, I think they can clean their bedroom much earlier, by the way. Take out garbage, be responsible for recycling, load the dishwasher, do the dishes, train pets, mop floors, plan menus. Letting them plan the menus is huge because they'll be much more invested in. Now, I don't know about you all, but we use Instacart. So my daughters can actually order the meal. Like they can literally go in and get everything they need without even having to go to the grocery store. That's one of the COVID silver linings. I didn't get this one. Ironing, and I think they can iron. Oftentimes irons are in primary classrooms in Montessori. They're not heated the same way, but we do have those. And then also, oftentimes my daughter has her own toolkit and they're the ones responsible. Like when the screws are coming out, they do that. We also have them build anything that comes in. They're responsible for building it. So like, the chairs, the stools, I don't know. I always seem to have furniture that has to be put together. So that's their job. Sewing projects, using the washer and dryer, sorting and folding, snow shoveling, unloading the dishwasher, walking the dog, all of those, assembling household, we talked about that. Chores for 10 to 12-year-olds, bathroom cleaning fully, and they can start doing pieces of this along the way. Fully cleaning the kitchen, cooking full meals, plan and leading outings. This is a big one. I really recommend that you let your children at family meeting, you get, you choose one fun thing to do for the week as a family. Sometimes it's a small thing, like you're gonna, play Blockus or something. And then sometimes it's a bigger thing, but letting them actually do the logistics. And with the internet, it's so easy to do now that they can figure out where you're going and what's the address and when do we need to get there and when do we need to leave to get there. And it really gives them a sense of autonomy and control. Because think about how often our children are going places always we're designing, right? wash and vacuum the car, clean up the yard and weed the garden, and mow the lawn. We are going to wrap up. Thank you for coming. I really, really appreciate everybody's time and your focus on this today.